Hello, everyone. It's good to see all of you as we wait for our colleagues to join in the next few minutes. It's good to see you. Wish I could see more faces on the screen. No pressure to turn on your camera, but yeah, no pressure at all. Yeah. Great, good stuff. It worked. Good to see you, Megajit. Good to see you, Kanwal. Good to see you, Bella. Okay, who else has their camera on? I'm just giving a shout out for the next 1 minute. Um, um, yeah, good to see that most of you have made it to the meeting. Hey, Anne Redfield, it's good to see you. Great, good stuff. Okay. Shout out to you, Nicolene, somewhere along the corridor. I also see you. We'll begin in the next 15 seconds, I guess. Um, just for the latecomers, we don't want to close out the latecomers. Okay, I guess our colleagues will find us on our way. Good afternoon from Nairobi. Good morning, good evening from wherever you're joining us from. I hope you're doing okay, and I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Welcome to this CGIAR Gender Impact Platform research seminar. I think this is the first of many, and we are looking forward to hearing exciting and looking at exciting presentations from our researchers this afternoon. But first of all, before we get into the meat of the research, my name is Nathan, and I'll be your moderator today. I want us to do something very light on the chat, okay? I hope I am clicking on the right screen. Yes, on the chat, very quickly, what emoji best describes your current science research mood? Are you currently doing some specific research, or are you currently working on a certain project? I mean, it couldn't necessarily be, it shouldn't necessarily be a science research paper. It could be a project. What emoji currently describes your mood? Oh, Emily, I see. I see. Let's see. Else, I see yours on the reaction, but on the chat, please post it on the chat and then everyone can see. I think for me, I should post the one that says that I'm happy because the science research seminar is finally happening, and I am looking forward to hearing some exciting presentations today. Jordan, you're dreading inbox coming back, coming back from leave. I feel you. But as they say, the leave days do surely come to an end. Welcome back to work. Uh, Karen, I see, trying to focus. Okay, that with the glasses thing. Kanwal, you look excited. Bella is curious. Suchaita, what's that, Suchaita? Is that curious? Is that an emoji for curious? But anyway, let's keep posting that in the chat. We'll try as much as possible to be strict on the time today. So for this next section, I would love to welcome Nicolene to officially open this research seminar. Welcome, Nicolene.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for showing up. This is our first time we're doing a research seminar, but we thought it would be a nice opportunity, and then also a nice opportunity to do it on youth, just to highlight some of the work that we have ongoing on youth in the CGIAR course. So you'll have some interesting presentations. It also just shows that youth is not something we're just starting. We've been doing it in the past, and we just need to give it some more visibility and build it much more. So looking forward to the presentations, and thanks again for joining. And of course, as always, if you have any questions or anything, please do put them in the chat. So thanks again.
Thank you so much, Nicolene, for that very brief introduction. I'm actually also looking forward to the presentations, and I don't want to hold us back any longer. Else, What do we have lined up for us coming up in the next hour or so?
Okay, thank you, Nathan. But I'll start with a small announcement for the Alliance module of the Gender Impact Platform. So please be reminded that there's a call for submission of expression of interest to participate in the science exchange, and to do so by the 15th of June. And all are welcome to participate. So we would like to have diverse perspectives represented, so don't feel intimidated to submit your IDs and join this group in the science exchange. No matter at the stage in your career, all voices are appreciated, all input are appreciated. And then there were two other important invitations by the Alliance module. One was supporting NARS networks, and one was delivering gender in agri-food system courses. So please, if you could also have a look at that and respond to those. But then, after those announcements, let's start with our town hall research seminars. So welcome, and it is focused on agri-food system research with a youth social inclusion and or intersectional perspective. So I think maybe I'm preaching to the choir, is that the saying? The integration of a gender perspective, but also a youth and a social inclusion perspective in agriculture and food system research for development are actually essential to contribute to achieving transformation towards just and inclusive and also sustainable and resilient food, land, and water systems. So research shows that young men and young women, they actually play a crucial role in shaping the future of agri-food systems. They're also like a vital target group for interventions in AR4D, and also given that there are significant employment opportunities in rural and peri-urban areas for them, but also challenges that they are particularly facing. Then a social inclusion lens seeks to uncover more also the structural factors and processes that result in inequality or marginalization, and refers to a process of improving that opportunity of otherwise disadvantaged or excluded individuals and groups to be heard and to have an influence on development and societal change efforts that affect their lives and their livelihoods. So the purpose of this seminar hosted by the Gender Impact Platform is to share recent research and their insights from a selection of research with a youth perspective or a gender inclusion intersectional perspective, or research that in the spirit of a social inclusion research has adopted inclusive or co-design research processes. And also another objective is that through this peer-to-peer exchange about this research, that we also leverage those insights and those learnings for ongoing and future youth and social inclusion research in agriculture and food systems. And we will have 5 presentations, and these will take us to rural youth livelihoods in Nigeria, young women's and men's climate adaptation practices in Kenyan livestock production systems, youth engagement in agroecology transitions in various countries, then the rural youth in agri-food systems in sub-Saharan Africa specifically, and then gender and intersectional disparities in water governance in Punjab. And with this, I would hand over to Nathan to launch us into the presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Els, for that great introduction. And without further ado, well, let's get into the research immediately. First off, we will hear from 2 very experienced researchers, from one from IITA and the other one is from Eldridge, just right across the hall from here. First, we'll hear from Bella Teken. I hope, Bella, you're here. Caroline could highlight Bella on the screen as we introduce you. He's a social science and gender researcher at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, where he's currently working with breeding teams of root, tubers, and bananas to inform and reform CGIAR breeding programs to make them more socially inclusive, with specific attention to integrating gender inclusive and transformative approaches. Today, we'll hear from Bella on navigating the nexus of aspirations and realities, the strategies for enhancing livelihoods of rural youth in southern Nigeria. Immediately after Bella, we will hear from Renee Ballock, who is a senior scientist working with the International Livestock Research Institute. Renee integrates both gender in project activities to support socially inclusive development and leads research in understanding social differentiation and climate change. So we will hear from Renee on young women's and men's climate adaptation practices and capacities in Kenya livestock production systems. But first off, let's hear from you, Bella, all the way from Nigeria. Over to you.
Yes. Choose my screen.
Yes, please, to share your screen.
Are you seeing my screen, everyone?
Yes, just have it in presentation mode and you're good to go. Great, good to go.
Okay, so thanks a lot for the introduction. I hope to contribute a little to this seminar with the story from Nigeria. So this is about navigating the nexus of aspirations and realities, strategies for enhancing livelihoods of rural youth in southern Nigeria. So the outline of my presentation will be, I'll go to the objectives, then we go to the context of the research, then to the methods, the main findings, and then the validation of results with the stakeholders, the validation of the research, and then some policy recommendations. So the main research questions was like, what are the current employment dynamics of rural young people in Nigeria? What is currently happening? What livelihood opportunities are they practicing? And what livelihoods are they living? And what are the young people's imagined work and future? So the imagined work and futures, as well as the current livelihoods that are there. And then we had some policy objectives and levers. So how might the appreciation of those young people's perspective, how might that help to influence policy in a positive manner? And what policy and what kind of policies can influence young people's engagements in the economic activities in these rural areas? And also how can that play out positively in urban and urban migration versus rural migration. So the context of the research, this research was done in 4 countries, and I'll be focusing on the Nigerian research. So with the methods, we used qualitative research in 2 states in Nigeria, and we took 4 communities close to 2 cities in 2 states, and 1 community was a little bit closer to the city, and another was a little bit further away. The research tools we used were really a mixed method approach of qualitative tools, from focus group discussions to photo voices, and then also at the end discussing the results with stakeholders, including youth and other stakeholders. So main findings, what are main findings, what we see? Well, these are some photo voices from youth made on the team Aspired Futures. And you see that they photograph a whole mix of things. You know, agriculture is there, livestock is there, electrician, contractors, retailers, or being a bank employee or being affiliated with that. So what is the access to land in these communities? Well, you see that most access to land comes from family and customary rights, and women have very little ownership of land. And if you go to the engagement with labor, you see that most people are on farm and self-employed, or on farm and anything else. So only on farm is kind of rare. So there's really a combination of things. Then the importance and imagined futures. So agriculture is there. It's not the most important. Non-farm seems to be the most important, but the combination is still there. Agriculture is still kind of firmly represented. So what are the main findings? We see that with regards to the current livelihoods, we see that access to land is not an issue. There's land enough. There's even land for immigrants available that come there, and so that's not a point. Then youths are innovatively, they combine many different activities. So within their specific situation, they take any time that they have to carry out different activities. So you get a kind of a fractured livelihood like that. And then involvement in non-farm income is really essential for them if they would want to imagine a future that is fully into agriculture, because you need that investment. Then there are considerable groups of rural youth that have a passion for agriculture. So a lot were born into it, so there's a lot of affection to it. So it's absolutely not a matter of mindset change or lack of affinity with agriculture. It's really if agriculture can become a beneficiary, then we will certainly want to take it up, because there's a lot of affection there with it. Then we can see that for those closer to the cities, they have this kind of more involvement in non-farming activities, but they firmly state like farming is part of us, part of our food security to eat. Otherwise, they cannot imagine that they can survive, because this is really food security thing. They cannot afford to go and buy a lot of food. So that's and then if you go further away from the city, then you see that there are considerable youths that really like to stay in agriculture, even though it's not so profitable to focus more on it. They stress that there's security in it because of the stability. You're independent, and also for non-farming jobs that are sometimes a lot of times done in faraway cities, there's insecurity and risks involved with that, which they don't want to take. And especially that's why they come also from other states. They come to settle in these rural areas. And then also they stress that the community protection, and the influence of adults and mentors in making the livelihood for them still a success, despite that they cannot live with agriculture alone. And then education is really found important. So even if you don't get a job in what you learned for, they see for each activity that you do, you can use your education very good. So education is a large part of the imagined futures. Then the less of access to higher education really creates a gap between the imagined futures and the current livelihoods. And women have less opportunities there. Then existing social networks. Again, here, this is also coming again back. The local mentors are seen by youth as very important. So you have adults that assist youth. There are local institutions that are very supporting. And then migration is really important for the income from non-farm activities, as we saw already. And then young immigrants are really welcomed in rural areas because they contribute a lot to the local economy. So there's no such thing as discrimination. They really like foreigners to come even from other countries. Somewhat with regards to gender, we see really that that for women, these fragmented lives, combining all kinds of activities, is really a larger challenge than for men, because they have so many assumed roles that they have to play within as caretakers. So the imagined futures of women tend to include less agricultural aspects, especially because of the physical drudgery associated with this. So if this drudgery would be removed, they will surely go into it. But we see here really largely a kind of problem of a sexual economy where all women who are not living up to the ideal of still working and taking taking up all these caretaker roles, that they are kind of relegated to the margins of society. And here you have an example of a woman who says, "Well, I sew a cloth, I sew all kind of clothes. We farm rice, I fix nails, pedicure, all these." So she combines all these things, and she mentions also caring for children. So you see, you see how kind of fractured these lives can be and challenging in that sense. Then we had the validation of results with stakeholders, and the stakeholders, the government officials and NGOs, they said they had the opinion that the youth were depending on the government, and that they didn't have high expectations. While our results show the contrary. The youth do everything to make their lives work because they expect nothing from the government. So after a discussion, the stakeholders also kind of acknowledged that it's really important that there are synergies between parastatals, community-based institutions, NGOs such as IATA, to address challenges with youth agriculture and non-agricultural livelihoods. So this realization was achieved during that. So what are the policy recommendations? We see that effective protection could be transformative for the young people. So bringing down taxes when they bring the produce to the market, each time the police asks for money, and these things are very, very annoying for a lot of youth, and not only for youth. And stimulates childcare facilities with high social community professional management control. Community-based investment platforms are important. And go back to the rural development basics, including provision or innovation or better infrastructure. So you see a lot of these things are not specific to youth only. They are a lot of times also count for other people. And then facilitating schooling for girls, given their serious restrictions of unpaid roles, as we saw. Collaboration with identify local social networks. Again, this mentorship is mentioned here. For example, in Anambra, there's an informal tutorage on business related to young men dropping out of school. This tutorage should be connected to formal education. So really building on local initiatives and community mentorship. And then mechanization with units that fit existing modes of farming and processing activities should be encouraged. And then the last thing, so you see that these fractured livelihoods of youths that combine many different activities together is an opportunity for interventions encouraging investment in agriculture by other domains. So development of value chains linking agriculture to non-agriculture. This will lower migrations to cities as well. So here are some of the resources on this study that we produced. Some policy brief, a journal article, and also a video, as you see, in 2 languages. So thanks a lot for your attention. Sorry for going over 4 minutes.
Great, Bella. Excellent. I was about to come in and tell you that you have 15 seconds to wrap up, but thank you for wrapping up. Just stay right up. We'll come back to you for a quick fire Q&A coming right up after Renee's presentation. Up next, we'll have Renee on young women's and men's climate adaptation practices and capacities in Kenya livestock production systems. Good afternoon, Renee. Please unmute.
Good afternoon. Let me try to share my
screen.
Yeah. Sure. How does it look?
Great. Just have it in presentation mode and you're good to go.
That is the one that, yeah, let's see. Okay, now it's okay?
Please
okay,
go ahead.
Great. All right, thank you very much. So as already presented, I'll discuss some work that we did around young women and men's climate adaptation practices in Kenya. This is a joint effort, so I'm presenting also work that I did with Philip Meriti and Tanaya Duttagupta. It's not moving. Okay. Here we go. There's a lot of terminology in climate discussions and in various forums. So it's important to define first what we're talking about. So I often view adaptation as something that supports or builds or strengthens resilience. So adaptation refers to the behaviors or actions that reduce exposure or vulnerability to climate risks, whereas resilience can be the longer term ability of a system to cope with changes, possibly bouncing back and possibly bouncing back better through more transformative aspects. So just want to set that out first. I think a lot of us know that social dynamics in livestock systems are significant. Livestock play very important economic roles, roles of nutrition, and also very much cultural roles in many different contexts within East Africa, Kenya, and many parts of the world. So there has been a lot of work on gender around livestock ownership, management, and resources like land and so forth. Gender and age has a little bit less coverage, but there is a finding that women own livestock species of often lower value in the gender literature, chickens and small ruminants or goats, possibly sheep. There's also a lot of different systems within which livestock are raised. So mixed crop and livestock, the case of dairy production that I'll talk about a little bit later. There's been some work on gender, especially around women's agency and decision making and labor. And I've also led some work on that looks at intersections of age, ethnicity, and gender in the dairy value chain. In pastoral systems, it's another diverse system with often culturally context-specific customs and practices, often very different regimes in how they're raising the livestock. Transhumance might be one element in pastoral systems. And there's a little bit of work around gender and age, suggesting that women have few opportunities to market, but also to inherit and own livestock. And in some of those systems, larger livestock are more common, such as cattle and possibly small ruminants, but they're not necessarily large. So the paper that we wrote set out to first understand what young women and men are doing in livestock production, what are the activities they're engaged in. The second objective was to look at what are the adaptive practices of women and men in some fairly diverse contexts, different systems and locations. The methods were qualitative, and we did this work in 3 very different counties, Kiambu, Nakuru, and Kajiado. And Kajiado is considered an arid land where pastoral and agro-pastoral practices are more common. So I inserted the picture of Kiambu because it shows a rich green landscape that's more like the high production dairy potential areas of Nakuru and Kiambu. So we had 48 sex and age disaggregated FGDs. I won't go into much detail about our analysis, but we were quite robust in our steps taken and worked collectively as a team in reviewing and using in vivo tools to the best possible so that we could better articulate some trends that we found. So some of the trends that we found were that men more often report livestock production activities more than women when we look at the counts of the FGDs. Chickens are very common, the most commonly raised livestock species by young people, women and men included, and dairy cow production, which might be influenced by the fact that we did go to some high production dairy communities. And small ruminants, pigs are also quite common in the urban and the peri-urban locations, and to a lesser extent, rabbits and cattle more specific to Kajiado. So I think rather than go into a lot of detail on some of the key findings, I want to share some of the stories that we had a chance to have somebody come through and do a documentation of a couple of young people in livestock settings. And this is Lillian. And she, I think through her story, shows the very many diverse opportunities. I think that young people are very much engaged in livestock and perceive livestock as a more flexible alternative, often less resource intensive when compared to crops, primarily because of land ownership and land access. So backyard production of chickens is common. Lillian also does intensive dairy production, which does require resources, labor in particular, as well as growing fodder and feeds. And there is a significant amount of labor in dairy production. But she's also in another segment of the value chain in which she's managing a milk bar. So it's a youth managed milk bar in Nakuru. So she's operating in different ways in the livestock sector and tapping multiple potential through selling milk and also running the small shop where she sells. There was a lot of mention. We did query how young people engage. More of a part-time, full-time livestock practices are very commonly in peri-urban and urban locations viewed as a side hustle. It is relatively, for some, they say relatively easy to get in and to go out once you find that job. So it's very plays a key role in various transitions from youth to adulthood through various stages. This is Samuel, who he depends upon dairy that is in his grandmother's house, and he sold enough milk to buy a computer, support his payment of school fees. And I think this was a testimony, many very good testimonies, not enough time to share all of them, but where young people shared why they got into various livestock practices, their passion for it. So it seems to be a relatively accessible source of income for many. When we look at adaptation, so a lot of documentation of climate impacts, whether it's drought, cold, floods, but generally rather low capacities. Apologies if the screen is not that clear in terms of the writing there, but rather inconsistent gender trends when we look at the different locations, which isn't terribly surprising given the diversity of sites that we had. Quite a number of maladaptive practices, destocking, selling off because you just sell before the animals might die. So this was just to look at chickens, because chicken was one of the most common species across all of the groups, 92%, as I had mentioned. So relative diversity in women's and men's different practices, and often a lot of rudimentary technologies. For chickens, cold was quite common in Nakuru, and just putting in a charcoal heater, and sometimes that led to death of chickens or burning. So quite basic kinds of practices were taken up, not a lot of access to resources. So not surprisingly, understanding young people's important relationships in which they're embedded and which shape their various access to livestock and to adaptation options. There's the intergenerational transfer of resources. So young people, depending on where they are in their life stage, might be living with family members, parents in particular, and grandparents also play important roles in sharing knowledge, even taking on labor roles, so sharing in the tasks. And then the transition from moving from when women shift from their households with parents to married households, it might be one of the first steps out is into a married household. There's a lot of new responsibilities associated with that. And if they marry into a household where livestock keeping is one of the main sources of income, they can take on new roles. And men did talk about marrying and how wives had to take on the responsibilities of managing the livestock enterprises while men looked for work outside of the home. So Samuel is again featured here. He lives with his family. They support him very much through land, resources. Family members help him, but he leads the dairy enterprise within the household. So it's very much an embedded kind of enterprise. So just a few parting thoughts. We had some policy recommendations and just a few research observations from the research. So young people, we might tend to think of them, maybe not us because we're gender experts, but they can be viewed in rather homogenous ways, but they live differently in different places, urban, peri-urban, and rural settings have different opportunities. The systems that we look at obviously shape quite a bit of the customs and the livestock practices. And life course stage is yet another dynamic kind of aspect when we look at youth, and how livestock may feature at different points in time. Dowry or payment of bride price is also an important feature in young people's transitions into independent households. So there is a lot to look at in that. I think one of the more
Sorry,
significant.
Renee.
Sure.
I am slowly coming back to the mic. Could you wrap
All
up?
right, got it. Yes.
Just wrap up,
Yep. I think locally led adaptation that is inclusive is an opportunity space in which young people might engage more in adaptation options for themselves, with some references and a thank you for your attention.
Great round of applause for Renee and Bella for the first round of presentations. Maybe Renee, you could stay on the mic and on the camera, and maybe Bella, you could also come back for a quick round of Q&A. So if you have any question, you could raise your hand, but in the meantime, I could read one question that's already here for you, Renee. And maybe Bella could also come on the camera so that I could also see you in case any question pops up for you. So if you have any question, please raise your hand. Okay, raise your hand through the Zoom icon somewhere on one of those Zoom tools, and then I would see and give you a chance to raise your question to Bella and Renee. But Renee, there's a quick question for you in the chat. I think this is by Kadka asking, did you also look at gender dynamics associated with water access for livestock and gender differential roles and challenges experienced by women and men in their case study?
Water might not have been such a feature, but it was mentioned. This was a study that wasn't even livestock specific. So I think where water emerged in technologies was when people were talking about the crop, some of the practices specific to crops, which had more data in that case. So I think water is important. However, yeah, wasn't a key area we looked at. What was the second question? Socially differentiated.
And the gender differential roles and challenges experienced by women and men in the case study areas.
Yes, it's there. It's actually an immense data set, 48 FGDs, and such a minimal part was used in this paper, but there is a lot more about that. And surprisingly, a lot of agency and passion around livestock, often culturally significant. So yes, but not reviewed or analyzed for this piece, but something we hope to analyze later.
Okay, I'll be on the lookout for a hand that is up, but I hope, Kadka, your question was answered well. Let me see. So Bella, this is for you. There was an initial question I think you responded to, did you? But what makes you frame young people's livelihoods as fractured rather than broken out? Think they were a bricolage of livelihood activities? That's by Dote. Did you respond to that? Maybe you can comment on that.
I responded to that. Yeah, I think, well,
okay.
Fractured. I mean, fractured in the case if something is not fractured, then it's kind of controlled. No, you maybe do 2-3 activities and you do them quite balanced in a way and well organized. Well, in this case, people are more what in street language they call hustling. No, you go from opportunity to opportunity. Like, okay, I have now farming to do now, so I'm going to do Okada taxi motor driving, or I'm going to sell by hawking at the roadside, or all these things. So that in that sense, it's hustling. So I call it fractured in that sense, because it's not each activity is kind of optimized. Maybe that's also not necessary, but it's even indicated by the people themselves that they can, well, they do that, but they cannot really do it very well, so to say. They're not, so it's also a term that kind of fits how the people themselves see the things.
Okay. And so a question for you, how did you define youth in your papers? So both of you, have seen you answer, Renee, so maybe Bella, you could go again.
About what did youth want avoid by staying in rural areas?
No. How did you define youth?
Oh, okay, how we define youth.
Yeah, who are the youth? Yeah.
We didn't interview people under 18 because of ethical concerns, but in our case it's from 18 till 35.
Okay. I guess that's the same for Kenya with Renee's paper. So I see Renee responded to other questions. Yes, please, Bella, go ahead.
No, we had youth that we kind of looked at the kind of younger youth and the elder youth as well to look at differences, but we didn't really find that much. But in the data collection, we kind of distinguished the younger and the older youth.
All right.
We also did that. Yep, I just wanted to add same thing, but the
Mhm.
analysis with so many groups made it quite difficult. We
Yeah.
couldn't see a lot of difference.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think it's
So
because it's more the where they are in their various relations was more
Yeah, it's more
compelling.
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. All right. One burning question from Els, and then we can move to the next round of presentations. Els, you are on mute.
Gosh,
Ah.
sorry. Yeah, I'm intrigued by this idea of hustling and what Dorte pitched also as bricolage of livelihood activities. And it seems to come up in Nigeria and in Kenya and in different systems. Then my question is this sort of a trial error strategy? Like, let's see what works out and then we continue in that field? Or is it really survival, like piecing all these things together to actually have enough money and survive? And then my follow-up question is there a difference between young women and young men, whether it's this bricolage is survival or trial and error? Thank you.
Who should
Yes.
go first?
I think that was directed to you, Bella.
We saw definitely a difference between men and young girls and young and boys, in the sense that it was less obvious for girls to go outside the community and work somewhere else. That was kind of less obvious. So those opportunities were a little less. So what was the rest of your question?
And maybe just to jump in 30 seconds, Els, and then in 1 minute for you, Bella.
Yeah, the question is it survival or sort of trial and error?
It's definitely a lot of survival. Of course, it's trial and error. You cannot separate it too much, but I would call it survival. Yeah, definitely.
And almost trial and error.
That's why we called our policy brief also beyond survival, beyond survival opportunity, so to say.
Thank you.
Great. Anything you want to add, Renee?
Yeah, I just think it's this almost like it's trial and error in order to survive, finding what would work, and more common among young men, and in part because of expectations of men to set up households, that breadwinner kind of, yeah. And it's really a cultural, it's very common in Kenya. Thanks.
Okay. I'm informed we have 1 more minute for one burning question. I will take one on the chat and then you can respond to the other one on the chat. I'll take the one by Esther Chandi. How is income control of how is the income control profile of young people? They seem to use resources from the household and that does not necessarily outrightly belong to them. Does this impact control over the income? So how's the income control profile of young people? Maybe Renee, you could go first on this.
I think it depends on how much cooperation there is within the household. And I think it depends, on what are the supports between the various family members, because I think there are cases of parents who take on the jobs while the young people go out to the city and they still get some of the income streams and it's used to support them. So I think it really varies by household kind of situation and the willingness of the parents, which is not always the case. There's a lot of subdivision as well of various resources.
All right. Bella, any addition to that?
No, not really.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Renee. And
other questions I can put in this chat. I'll answer them in the chat.
Yes, please. Congratulations again on the wonderful presentations. A round of applause for Renee and Bella. Yeah, virtual claps. Thank you very much for the exciting presentations. And I see there's an exciting question for you two in the chat to engage with in the meantime. But now we are continuing and getting back again into more research from more researchers. Right about now, we will hear from Megajit Sharma from the Alliance of Biodiversity and CIAT. Megajit is currently working at CIAT as a postdoctoral fellow on gender, youth, and social inclusion. and he's based in Bangalore, India, and contributes to CGIAR Gender Equality Initiative and the Agroecology Initiative. But before we hear from Megajit, let me also introduce Yilai Jumai from International Livestock Research Institute. For over 18 years, Jumai has contributed and led initiatives that mainstream gender outcomes in different crops and forest value chains, impacting the economic empowerment of women and socio-ecological resilience of smallholder farmers and farming communities in sub-Saharan Africa. We will start with you, Megajit. Good afternoon, and please take it over.
Yeah, I'll start sharing my screen.
Yes, please. I'll stop sharing.
Is it visible?
It's coming up. Yes, it's coming up. Just put it on presentation mode and please take it away.
Yeah, okay.
Great.
Let me just, yeah. Hi, everyone. Today I'll be speaking a little bit about the current study that we're taking up under the Agroecology Initiative. The study is mainly around exploring young women and young men's engagement in agroecology transition, and we will be sharing some high-level insights from the participating countries, in particular Peru and Tunisia. So this is truly a collective effort from the various teams, country teams in agroecology. So the study actually got idealized, the ideation started when we had these consultations with the stakeholders from the agroecology living landscapes in Peru, Kenya, Zimbabwe, India, and Tunisia, where all of these stakeholders reported on a common issue, like where are young women and men? Where are they moving out from agriculture, and why are they missing from the rural spaces? And they also asked a question around why participation in collective action groups are mostly dominated by older farmers. So the main question that emerged was like how they can support young women and young men, particularly the young people in these areas, and how to motivate them back into the rural spaces and in agriculture. And also around what does agriculture and particularly agroecology have to offer. So with these questions in our mind, we conceptualize the objective of the study as to identify actionable learnings from agroecology living landscapes, stakeholders in Kenya, Zimbabwe, Peru, and Tunisia, to understand about the underlying reasons for young women and men's underrepresentation in farmers' collective action groups and in agriculture more broadly. The more specific research questions that we wanted to explore for the study was particularly, it's centered around like understanding rural environments of agroecology living landscapes, like in terms of rural economy, food systems, political, social, and cultural dimensions, and what are the dominant visions of agriculture and agroecology, and how all of these factors shaped and builds opportunities or disincentivizes young women and young men from building agri-food-based livelihood in these research sites. Again, like another question that we felt it was very imperative for us to explore was to try and understand how can agroecology respond to young people's aspirations, interests, and needs in relations to creating prosperous livelihood in the agroecology living landscapes. So coming to the methods, like we employ a mixed method, but more qualitative and quantitative. For the first set of data, we conducted individual semi-structured interviews from youths, young women and men from different countries. And the total number of cases that we have is 130 interview cases with 66 women and 64 men. We also conducted key informant interviews to get an understanding of like what are the political current landscapes in terms of youth, and how our institutions in the context of agriculture and agroecology taking up steps to ensure youth are well integrated. We are also trying to get quantitative data baselines to ensure us that we get the data for sex disaggregated analysis. And the last one is the photo voice FGDs with youth. And these are the current status of the countries. 3 of the countries have completed, while 2 are still ongoing. So in terms of the study design, we wanted the study to be very interactive, engaging, and participatory. This is why we adopted the photo voice method, which is interactive on its own, but we also wanted to explore with, engage, and to inspire the young participants, which is why we introduced the Photo Voice Award. And this award will be given to those selected participants from the country-level photo voice competition. And then the Photo Voice Award will be given to the best photo and the narrative produced by a young participant. The main intention behind this Photo Voice Award is to provide opportunities for young women and men to engage with local stakeholders, including policymakers, government representatives in their own country, as well as to provide a common platform for the youths from different countries to come together and interact in the Photo Voice Award event. So the study, we are still in the data collection stage, and we have not been able to draw out key major concrete findings, but we will be presenting some insights from the Photo Voice. So the Photo Voice method, we have 5 prompts, which we designed to ensure that the aspirations, the imaginations of the young people are collected. So the first prompt we used is the dream farm. This signifies how the young man and young woman envisions what their dream farms would look like. Collective groups signifies their relationships with existing collectives in the agricultural context, while the environment prompt speaks about what they enjoy in their environment, what needs to be improved in their localities, in the places where they live. And actions and agency signifies the young women's and young men's achievements and their ability to influence in decision making. In terms of agroecology, we wanted to understand what the young woman and young man understands by the term agroecology, and if they see it as fitting to their communities and for their development. So sharing some insights from Peru and Tunisia. For the interest of time, I'll be sharing only 3 themes, insights from 3 themes. The first one is the dream farm. Here, in case of Peru, we can see the dream farm relates with sustained productivity, the diversification. And here we can see the elements of farms which they envision to have in their dream farms. There's fishery, poultry, along with the crops. While in case of Tunisia, the young people highlights about the certain roadblocks which they envision might disincentivize them from reaching their dream farm status. So the narrative highlights about financial problems that farmers are suffering in their country, while in the picture, it says that there are already available local resources, and given the financial problems are resolved, they'll be able to achieve and scale production. In terms of agroecology, there was a common agreement in Peru that it is an innovation that allows coexistence in harmony with plants and animals, and that it is a benefiting nature-based solutions. While in case of Tunisia, they mainly focused around the principle of recycling, where the narrative shows nothing is lost, everything is transformed, as well as they focus around other nature-based techniques, such as introductions of crop rotations, which improve their soil health. So they do see the benefits, and they understand that agroecology is quite benefiting, and it's a sustainable method for them to apply. Lastly, the collective. In terms of the Peru, we see the young women and men not actually being a part of collective, but their relationships to the collective is through their mothers, parents who are part of the collectives. They see that their parents being part of them, they could feel the indirect benefits through their parents, their livelihood incomes, and learnings they could get through the parents who are part of the collectives. While in case of Tunisia, what really happened was the collective groups, young women and men, were actually participants of the collectives, and they could already see how the collectives were benefiting them in terms of enabling them to produce local available local available resources into finished products such as packaged and labeled honey and fig and jam. And through this, they were able to generate multiple benefits, including improved income and job creation. So these are the certain insights and differentials of experience that was being presented to us through the photo voice. And on a concluding note, like I would like to just say that like we are still going to analyze all the data, and then a lot of like products are upcoming, and we please also look out for the photo voice competition that we are going to have. And I also like to thank all the country teams and the various researchers like who are part of the study. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Megajit. That's like 10 minutes on the dot. We should learn a thing or two from you about using the exact time that you're given. That's excellent. And of course, a very excellent presentation and insights from your research. We'll come back to you for the Q&A, which I know will be coming in hot after the next presentation. We will hear, first of all, from Yila Jumai from IRI, who will speak to us on harnessing and transforming the potential of rural youth in the agri-food systems in sub-Saharan Africa. Good afternoon, Jumai. Please share your screen and proceed. Great.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Jumai. Yes, I can hear you. Could you have your presentation on presentation mode, and then let's see.
Sure. Okay.
Great.
Yeah, so this is our research study looking at how we can harness and transform the potential of youth in agri-food system in sub-Saharan Africa. So we all know that the percentage of food produced and managed and consumed in the world is being produced from smallholder farms, and youth constitute a large number of these smallholder farmers. And in sub-Saharan Africa, they are set to exceed 60% of the population by 2020. Hence, the need to involve or look at who the youth are and what their potential or contribution will be in sustaining agricultural production. A number of research has looked at this kind of potential, but has placed the trajectories or pathways of youth, focusing mainly on occupational or vocational pathways for the youth, and then recently in terms of also entrepreneurship. Looking at the immense contribution of youth and their likely potential, there are a number of orthodox assumptions or even inappropriate policies at the local level that do not really seem to understand what the youth are and what could be their likely pathways. Hence, the cry or the different concern about the shift of youth and their lack of interest in agriculture. So we needed to understand these intergenerational dynamics and agricultural transition from older generation to the current generation, or the generation that will take care of agriculture in the coming future. So these are the research questions that informed our study. How do we define youth? Who are we targeting when we talk about youth? Does our understanding of youth actually exclude some of the youth within the context we are talking about? And if we do, in what segments of the agri-food system are youth situated, or where are they interested in the various agricultural value chain? And what are the opportunities as well as their challenges? If we do discover, how do we address some of these opportunities? We also look at their aspirations as well as their parent aspirations. And then finally, we considered examining how rural youth can be integrated more effectively, embedded in the agricultural value chain, as well as enhancing their contribution in both local, regional, and global economic development. So these are two separate research that were conducted at different times in 4 countries. The first part was conducted in Mali and Nigeria, and the second in Ghana and Cameroon, in these different study areas. The methodology employed for this research is basically, mixed research method, beginning with the review of literature, recognition survey to the different sites, then using both quantitative and qualitative method, we were able to examine the aforementioned research questions. The number of samples are also different in all of these countries, and proportion of women, men, or youth and female youth are all also different and featured here. Now, in order to understand who are considered youth in the different societies or study sites, we have seen that there is varied definition and also elements that define youth in these societies. We can look at these codes from Cameroon and in Ghana. It is seen that youth are defined as those with energy, physical strength, agility, and all of that. But when it comes to age, the range is really wide. Looking at age between 15 and 35 for Ghana, and then 18 and 50 for Cameroon. In terms of aspirations for daughters and sons, parents, were able to offer also more or less the same kind of aspiration that they have for their children, but majorly looking at the fact that those who farm, and if their children follow after them to farm, they may suffer. Therefore, there is need for them to look at other professions. And some of the professions look at are mainly white-collar job or professional activities. And the reason given particularly in these areas is the fact that aside or contrary for daughters, they can take on some of these jobs, but for their sons, they need these professional jobs in order to be independent. That means there is no security of livelihood in the agri-food system for their sons if they take on that. Following that is the fact that we needed to understand what the societies or the different local contexts are saying about youth and agriculture. And looking at that, we can see that agriculture is very favored in Cameroon, but with the caveat that it should be able to mitigate some of the challenges that the youth of farmers face. But in Ghana, there is high disfavorable outlook on agriculture. They don't want their youth to farm because it is not something that they should be found doing as their parents who have suffered in that kind of livelihood. Other aspect is the opportunities that they may have in agriculture. And looking at the opportunities, we have seen that opportunities include funding and access to farm input. Also, if youth, both men and women, are able to get access to these, then the opportunities are immense for them. But once there is no good access, then the opportunities cannot be harnessed in agriculture for both male and female youth. In Nigeria, we have looked at the constraints of youth in agriculture, and we also considered the fact that they are located in different agricultural value chain. So we have seen that majority of the youth are mainly found on the production segment, while others are found more or less in very minor proportion in the other segments of the agri-food system or the agricultural value chain. But essentially, there's abundant resources coupled with the region's diverse youth population that allow youth to tap into the agri-food system transformation. We looked at how young people face problems in agriculture, what are their constraints, and basically it is said, particularly in Ghana, in Nigeria and Mali, the main challenge is actually lack of financial support or access to finances in addition to other natural capitals like land. So, but in Cameroon, this also validated the fact that young people face problems of lack of finances, land, and as well as technical knowledge in agricultural production practices. And then looking at their opportunities, it is revealed that youth see immense opportunity in agriculture owing to the fact that agriculture offers them full-time employment. So if they have to be employed, agriculture offers that opportunity. So what is it that this study has shown? We have concluded that infrastructural regulation, intervention, and other specific training is what is needed to engage youth in agriculture. And youth have already embraced food production, marketing, and processing as pathways and opportunities in agriculture. But this may have implication in terms of how we revitalize the agricultural sector. Specifically for the processing node, we have seen that it is more dominated by female youth, but then much of the activities in the processing node of the agricultural value chain are done using traditional means. So looking at technology and other aspects of training would be good enough to transform this sector in order to enhance the potential of youth in the sector. So this is what we have framed to enable us really consider how to understand youth and what their pathways are or their opportunities in agriculture. They need to be profiled. The context analysis needs to be undertaken. We need to identify and map their aspiration in order to ensure that youth inclusive and sustainable development is done with them and not without them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jemai. Right on time again. And of course, a very excellent presentation. Maybe you could just stop sharing your screen and then just stay on the microphone and camera. And Megajit, could you please also turn your camera on? There's some questions for you. I think there's a burning one for you, Jemai, from Dina, asking, did they mention why youth are defined up to 50 in Cameroon? And does this differ between men and women? This is actually interesting. Yes, please.
Yeah, the reason is because of the life practices of the youth. So sometimes if you're not married or you're not independent to a certain age, you remain youth. It doesn't matter what your age is, as long as you don't have a secure livelihood or what calls you a family man or woman, you remain a youth.
Interesting. Should I move to Cameroon already and be a youth for the rest of my 40s? I am kidding. Let's see if there are more questions. If you have a burning question, please raise your hand, and probably Caroline can also highlight Megajit, spotlight Megajit on the camera. Thank you very much. And I think there's another question from Ojong, which I think you've practically answered. Was this also verified following the country standard? I think that was a follow-up question on why the youth are defined as up to 50, Yeah, we might have youth in 40s and 50s, Rama. Any burning question? Let me see if there's a hand up. I don't see any hand up. But
yeah, sorry, can I ask a follow-up question? Yeah, I don't know.
That's Dina? Yes,
yeah,
Dina,
me.
please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jemai. I have a follow-up question. So when we find that the local definition is, up to 50, or like you said, when you're not married or whatever it is that we find. So did you use that definition in your survey? So like, did you go and looked, unmarried as youth, married, or whatever was the cut edge, or maybe there's no, clear, it's a combination of characteristics that define a youth. But the bottom line is, did you try to apply that definition in your results, in your analysis? Yeah, I mean,
No,
yeah. So
yeah, at least before we went to the field, this definition wasn't known, so we couldn't have used it in the analysis. But because we went in order to understand the contextual understanding and definition of youth, this was what we gathered from the survey and the interviews. But in doing the sampling and methodology, we used the African Union definition of youth between the ages of 15 and 35. And not just the national or country-specific youth definition. But we, of course, surveyed both youth in this African Union youth range, age, and then their parents. So whoever identifies as parent and whoever identifies within that range of age, 15 to 35, were those interviewed. I can't hear Nathan.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much for picking that up. Thank you so much, Dina, for your question. And I hope that's a clear response from Jumai. And thank you to you, Jumai and Megajit. Please stay on the chat. I believe there will be more questions for you. And I think there's a follow-up comment for you, Jumai, on the chat. I have seen you, Megajit, responding to some of the questions. Great. Thank you so much. And congratulations again for the excellent presentations. Right now, we will go to our final presentation, which, let me quickly share my screen, which the final presentation, and I hope I pronounce your name correctly, will be from the International Water Management Institute by Kanwal Wakar, who's a dynamic and proactive researcher, practitioner with over 10 years experience working with national and international organizations on gender mainstreaming, social inclusion, and climate change. Kanwal, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Again, apologies. Kanwal will be talking to us on bridging gender disparities in water governance, showing a case study from rural Punjab. Should be evening for you.
Yeah.
Good evening.
So yeah, good evening, everyone. So let me share my screen.
Okay.
Okay,
Let me know if you want to. Okay.
Yeah, it's here now. Just
Okay.
let me know if you can see
coming
it.
up. It's
I'm
coming
putting
up.
in. Okay.
Did you put it on presentation mode?
Is it fine?
Try putting
I
it
did it.
Okay.
Can you see it in a screen? Yeah.
Let me just see if it's clear from my. It's not on presentation. Could you go to slide number 2 and let me see if it changes anything?
Okay. Let me check.
Okay, try again. Okay, I could try and share the screen for you if it's.
Yeah,
if it's okay.
Sure.
Okay, just stop sharing and then I can quickly.
Okay.
Apologies for that. Is screen number 2. Great. Let me know if it goes on
Okay, so
presentation.
meanwhile you are sharing the screen. Yeah. Yeah, it's here, but just put it on the screen.
It's on presentation mode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So once again, good afternoon, everyone. We're under one of our initiative of Water Source Accountability Program in Pakistan, bridging gender disparities in water governance. So moving towards the next slide, please. here I wanted to show you the map of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, where you can see we have 4 provinces, and the Punjab province is almost have 36 districts and the largest share in the agriculture production of Pakistan. And within Punjab province, we have our district, pilot district, where we are working under this initiative. It's Ukada. So Ukada is basically, Ukada has 3 for the tehsil, that's Renala, Khod, Ukada, and Dipalpur. So next slide, please. So when we talk about the population of Pakistan, then 49.6% of the female population and almost 50% of male population. And the rural-urban division is that 62% is in rural and 37% is in urban areas. And when we look at the women participation in agriculture, then 70% women are associated with agriculture sector in Pakistan. Next, please. So when we know that this much of number is associated, can you hear me? Okay. So when we talk about the challenges of gender equality and social inclusion in water sector in South Asia, then we know that there is a lack of institutional capacity to ensure gender equality and social inclusion in this sector. Then the women leadership, underrepresentation, women leadership roles, then gender, we have policies, but those are the gender blind policies. Then inequitable division of labor and lack of access to professional training and development opportunities. Also lack of awareness and sensitization at all levels from policy to implementation that hinders the women participation in agriculture and water sector. So to next slide, please. So to overcome or bridge some of these gender disparities, what we have so far done under this Water Resource Accountability in Pakistan program, wherein Component 1 Climate Resilient Solutions for Improving Water Governance. This program started in November 2021 and it's still 2026 and funded by FCDO. So the overall objective of the project or the program is to strengthen the governance of water at national and provincial levels, supporting adaptation to climate change and improving environmental sustainability. So next slide, please. So I'm happy to share here the gender transformative approaches which we have adopted and worked under this RAP. And we have worked on both qualitative and quantitative, used both qualitative and qualitative methods. And we started first with a policy review to understand that what institutional capacities are required in terms of gender equality and social inclusion. So we have National Water Policy, which was formed in 2018, and then we have a Punjab Water Act in 2019. Next, please. So while analyzing these both policies with gender lens, we found that the Punjab Water Act is a gender blind or gender neutral, you can say. And the National Water Policy is a gender neutral, which no clear roadmap on women's inclusion. So after this, to understand that the gender dynamics in our pilot district, where we were going to start our initiatives, what we did that, next slide, please. We adopted the qualitative approach and started with the, can you please move the next slide? Okay, thank you, that's it. So for the gap analysis, we identified the gaps in GSC knowledge and or practices in agriculture water sector. We did a lot of in-person interviews and we did a lot of focus group discussions with the water user associations. And after that, the key findings which came up was that there is a lack of capacity to ensure GSC at all levels of planning and implementation. And other important factor was lack of sex disaggregated data. Because without data, you cannot make any equitable approach or any equitable planning. And some of very interesting findings while having a focus group discussion with the female members of water user associations. So let me share that in here in Pakistan, the water user associations have almost 7 members, and there is a criteria that there should be a one female in that association. So while talking to that one particular female in water user association, her response was that we cannot make decision. We never, we don't know about the world outside our home, so we cannot make decision. Talking about the financial limitations, they said that we cannot make the financial decisions because it's for the male part. So these kind of things came up. Then the male member says that irrigation is the duty of male member. of the household. We are not supposed to interfere in these matters, the female says. So very interesting findings came up after having discussion with them. So next, please. On the basis of all these initial data collection and all these initial meetings, we started with the capacity building in JESI in water sector of these government institutions. And we actually designed a very basic level of JESI trainings, and we started with the district, province, and federal level of water and agriculture departments, and we focused on the young professionals and also involved the academia in these trainings. Then not only the departments, we focused towards the communities, and we organized the capacity building trainings for the male and female farmers. Why we are talking about the gender equality and social inclusion in this sector, we started having the discussions. We starting having a basic level of trainings for them, the community trainings. So next, please. After all these trainings at all levels, we also engaged media, because whenever we want to bring a change in the society, the media plays a very crucial role. So what we did, that we engaged the local media, and we also organized the young students in those trainings. Can you please move to next slide? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Kamal, I can hear you. Maybe you could turn off your camera so that could improve your bandwidth. We keep losing you at some points. And your slide is up. Great. Hello, Kanwal, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, I'm here.
Great.
So after all these initial analysis, we developed tools. The one we developed is a guideline. It's a form of a practitioner cheat sheet for ensuring gender inclusive planning. It has all basic steps which one could adopt to ensure the JESI element in the project planning and initiatives. And then another tool I developed with my colleague, it's a power walk activity that's basically to understand intersectionality and impact on communities, which we use during our trainings. So next, please. So after this, to overcoming the okay, so also we are working to overcome the gender bias assumption in agriculture and water sector. So one of the assumption is that next slide, please. So one of the assumption is that women won't understand technical training. So training should be targeted to male heads of the farm household. But under this initiative, what we are doing, that we are targeting the next slide, please. We are identifying and targeting the progressive female farmers who are working in their agriculture land. They are managing their agriculture land, and we are giving the trainings on climate smart irrigation technologies to them. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. So to overcome the another assumption that women won't, yeah, please move to the next slide. Yeah, okay. That women won't feel comfortable in joining the technical meetings. So for this, what we did, that the previous one, please. So for this, we have created the enabling environment for these progressive female farmers, where they have joined our working groups, and they participate in these working groups and share their insights and their experience and challenges in this sector. So next, please. So to overcome the sex segregated data, we had a in-depth quantitative data collection from district Okara. Next, please. And here I'll show some key insights from the data. So here we have a 402 households with 53 female and 349 male-headed households. So while looking at the level of education of male and female-headed households, we see that 39% of female-headed households are under the schooling of 5 to 9 years. Next, please. And while talking about the main source of livelihood, then we can see that mainly the source of livelihood is agriculture for these households, the male and female-headed households. And on the right side, you can see the graph showing the time both male-headed and female-headed households are spending in the agriculture activities, where the female-headed households are contributing to more hours, 2 to 3 hours more in agriculture activities along with the household chores. Next slide, please. So here we have actually collected the data on time to collect drinking water from various sources, and it's again we can see is that the female headed household, they took more time, 15 to 30 minutes, to collect water from the pipe, from the public tap or standpipe. So next, please. So one very important question which we asked and got the responses was that do they have the awareness regarding the climate change and the impacts, and have they ever heard the term climate change? So they says that they says yes, they have the they have heard the term climate change. But next, please. Interestingly, when we asked them the impact, so only 9% of the respondents agreed with the statement that women and children suffer the most from water shortages. Next, please. So here we have also collected the data from the total industries in Okada, and we can see that there were almost 61% small industries, which include 47% of poultry and dairy fish. But the interesting thing was that, next, please. Not a single industry is owned by women. So can you please move to the next slide? So after this data collection and survey, the interesting finding came out was that 30% women are involved in household level decision making, but when we talk about the decision with regard to agriculture activities, despite they have a 70 to 80% of involvement or participation in agriculture, there's a very limited, only 3% of involvement in agriculture related to decisions related to agriculture. Uh, so that's all. And can you move to the next slide, please? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kanwal, and apologies again for the challenges, but great presentation and interesting findings. I'm sure we'll have a number of questions. You could probably come back again on camera and on the mic. I'll stop sharing the screen. I hope that will improve.
Yeah, okay, I did it.
That will improve the bandwidth. I think we have a number of questions. Let me just quickly go to the chat. There's a question by Agnes, and colleagues, if you have a burning question, please raise your hand, and I can just give you some minutes to come on the microphone. There's a question by Agnes for you, Kanwal. Are you looking at time spent by women in male-headed households?
I'm sorry, your voice is not clear to me.
So the question by Agnes is, are you looking at time spent by women in male-headed households as well?
No. It was basically, no, we didn't say that. Basically, what we did, that the sample of the 402 households, we actually divided the male and female headed households. And then in those particular households, we see all of these different variables. So within male headed households, we haven't so far collected this information.
Okay, great. Maybe something interesting that I picked, you spoke about the power walk activity, a tool that you came up with. Maybe could you tell me more about that? I thought that was interesting.
Okay, that's really interesting. One of my colleague, Sidra, and another, my gender colleague, Sidra and Khatija, we are working in AMI, Pakistan, and we are working on developing various tools. So under this Power Walk activity, what we did, that we adapted this tool, and we actually created or modified this whole tool for the water sector. So it's basically the exercise which we can use during our trainings to give the understanding to the participants about the intersectionality and their impact on the communities. So here we developed various characters with regard to the water sector, and then the different scenes where we can, through the exercise, give this clear understanding. So this tool is also published on the CG space, and I can share the link with you.
Please share the link with colleagues. Let me quickly glance at the chat again. I don't see more questions, but probably there's one more burning question. No, that's the link on the Power Walk activity. Thank you very much, Sidra, for sharing that. Any last burning question as else comes back on the... Yes, Else, I can see you now. And again, congratulations again to you, Kanwal, for the excellent presentation on the abstract. I believe we will also be able to share this with the entire group of gender researchers along with the presentations. And of course, thanks again to Megajit and to Yilai Jumai, and to Renee and to Bella for the excellent presentations. This is a round of applause since I'm on the microphone, but colleagues, please, one last round of applause for the presenters for the excellent presentations. Else, what did you think of the presentations now that we are right on the clock?
Yes, I really thought they were really good presentations with a lot of insightful findings. I had like some points that I took out, and I think the gender and age intersectional lens is, I think, something we can't ignore. It cuts across everything. Who is youth? What you're doing? What your aspiration gap is, but I also saw like opportunities. I think the hustling, the bricolage, if that can be made profitable, is an opportunity. I think youth are interested in education, not just for a job, but for knowledge. Sustainable agriculture is high on their agenda, and I think those are opportunities that I think we can build upon with that gender intersectional lens, I think. And that will be the end of the research seminar. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much. And I also saw daughter in the chat, so I believe if we had time, we would pick your mind on what you thought also. But thanks again, dear colleagues, for joining, and thank you to the presenters for the excellent presentations. I believe else that brings us to the end of the research seminar. You could please let us go now.
I'm closing the research seminar here. Thank you very much to presenters, to the audience. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.